Hello everyone and welcome back to Phoenix Gaming. We are kicking off year 2 of Phoenix Gaming with World Series of Board Gaming coverage. This right here, we're about to watch the Cascadia Ring Final. This game did not get pulled in the random semifinals or finals. We're choosing Cascadia for a couple reasons. Reason number one, it's one of the games that was available. Reason number two, it's a game that I actually practiced with my mom a fair amount. If you've been following me, then you know that she and I practiced over the summer because this is a game that she chose. You'll see that she's not actually in this finals right here, but she did win the first round of this game, which she was pretty excited by. So I'm excited to talk about this game. And then the third reason is that this is the first year that WSBG used Cascadia, and it will be continuing into next year. So starting off with something that's a little fresh, a little hot, I think is maybe the way that we're going to get going here. A couple extra things about this video. I'm going to be covering Nick and Starla. You're certainly welcome to watch the original WSBG coverage over on Dice Tower, where you can kind of see them covering the game and their takes on it. This game is a ridiculous 3 hours long, which is much, much longer than Cascadia has any right to be. You can certainly understand why players would want to sit and think in a game that has such high stakes. But man, I would struggle with a 3-hour game of Cascadia. So we're going to see how we get through this. To that point, I am running this playback video on 20% additional speed. That's for my sanity, because when you watch this on YouTube, you can watch at any speed you like. But I need to make sure that I get through this and don't lose steam. So it's on 20% faster speed. So if you see people moving a little bit frantically and weird, that's exactly why. We're going to go ahead and miniaturize ourselves so we can see our good friend John down here. We've got these 4 players. We've got Bryana seat 1, Aaron seat 2, John seat 3, PJ seat 4, and we see that Bryana is actually going ahead and getting started right off the bat here. I'm actually, before I hit play on the video, going to comment on the state and the choices that she's making. So we've got 5, actually, I think quite interesting animals here as choices for the final. So the pinnacle here, and I think they're going to end up showing some of these animals so we can look at them, is Hawk C. The line of sight hawk is just absolutely busted. It scores a crazy amount of points. I'll talk more about that why. So that's the first thing that catches my eye in this set. I generally don't like bears, but we're playing with bears D, big groups of bears, which is one of the more powerful bear sets in my opinion. More powerful bears just means about as average as any animal can be as far as I'm concerned. We're playing with salmon D, which is like the run surrounded salmon, the one that is a run and then ones that connect to it, which I think is a really interesting, clean one. But because it just kind of counts those points, I think they don't tend to have as explosive or even as clear scoring as the other animals, which is really good for finalists. It's going to be circumstantial, but ideally you want to run that salmon river through the middle of which your final setup is going to be. Elk are elk B, which are like formations or shapes. Those are very fundamental, straightforward, totally okay animals. And then foxes are, I believe, A, which score 1 for each unique adjacent animal, which is a fox tile that can score up to 5 points per fox if set up correctly. That requires a lot of specific setup and is harder to pull off in some sets than others, but is really, really powerful. So actually a lot of great choices for a final here. And let's go ahead and get our video rolling here. And we get Bryana started over here. So she's going to go ahead and grab a bear to start off with. I think that the bear is not that powerful, but I'm sure the reason she's grabbing it, you notice she put that mountain water tile kind of on the bottom there. She has a double habitat connection, and anytime you're able to make those double habitat connections, it is just generally long-term beneficial. Every single thing in your biggest habitat is going to be worth at least 1 point along the way, and so why not take advantage of the fact that she sees that double pairing right now? Like I said, the bears are pretty okay in this setup, so totally reasonable choice to make. The only thing that I would have otherwise considered in her seat is actually taking that hawk that we see Aaron taking right now. Like I said, the hawk scoring for Hawk C, line of sight hawks, is just absolutely nutty. I'll have more time to talk about it later, but it is easily the highest scoring animal if you can set up the situation for it. I don't want to go too deep into it because the players do actually play pretty fast in these first few rounds, so stick around for later. I could go into why that hawk is cool. Here they're showing the grizzly bears that are out there. So you see one single grizzly bear is not worth anything. 2 grizzly bears are worth 2.5 points per bear, and you're going to see me doing this per animal thing quite a lot. 3 grizzly bears is worth almost 3 points per bear, or 2.67 if you want to be like that. 4 grizzly bears is worth more than 3 points per bear, or 3.25 per bear. 3 is usually my rule of thumb of the animal needs to be worth 3 for it to be at least okay. We see that Aaron grabbed the hawk, but I think did not necessarily... Oh, he grabbed the hawk and he also got a double... He got the mountain water, so he got a double habitat connect as well. And then we saw John here grabbed an elk, which is interesting. I think elks are one of the weaker ones here. And then he grabbed himself a forest habitat with the grab a nature token for putting maybe a fox on it. It's a little hard to check for sure, but I think that's what it is. I don't like I thought those at the beginning that those habitats were more powerful and getting most of those mattered most, but I actually find that the double habitat thing is more important in my experience and keeps your options more open as well. Whereas John is essentially restricted his choices of what he can play on that tile and kind of has to play as if that tile is a fox tile and doesn't score quite as many points for the habitat itself. So the 1 point you get for the nature token or the nature token itself essentially is the same as having a double habitat that touches 2 different things. So interesting choice there, because I don't think that the elk is necessarily that exciting, but I missed what the other things are because we are moving pretty quickly to start off here. And then PJ looks like he also grabbed a bear and then something that connected to his water. Not a double habitat, but certainly gave the opportunity for a forest to wind up connecting there as well. Bryana here we see continuing to basically double down on double habitats, right? Grabbing that yellow and marsh tile and getting a hawk along the way. I think that's a really, really good pickup. Plus that hawk is in a pretty nice position to start setting up triangle scoring. The only problem is that where she put that habitat isn't going to make for the ideal triangles, which again, I promise I will explain more later as I'm trying to play catch up here. Aaron's in a situation where he sees 3 foxes on board. And foxes are something that I find in this game. I think foxes are underplayed by most people. But that being said, you do need to set up for them. You do need to have the situation such that the foxes can fit on your board. We see that Aaron has no places to play any foxes on his board. If he doesn't wipe these 3 foxes for new animals, I'll be quite surprised. Looks like his starting board there, and then the tile he added asks him to have a lot of salmon. So I imagine he's going to grab something with the salmon, but he could just consider not wiping foxes, grab that salmon on that fox tile right now, and start essentially setting up a situation where he can grab those foxes if they don't get wiped on subsequent turns. That being said, I've already expressed that I'm only like so excited about those singleton spaces. However, looking at the other habitat tiles that Aaron's got here, he's got a forest and a water, which are very disparate on his map. So there's no way he's getting like a double habitat connect. And there's also a water marsh, which again, also like if you look at Aaron's board, you know, he's got, I'm going to speak about everything in this game. Like north is my north on the table, the like top side of the table. And south is my south. To Aaron, that would obviously be inverted, right? But we're going to treat it all from our perspective. So he's placing that forest tile in the north right now. And I like the grab of that salmon tile. His initial board says, hey, you got to play salmon here. You have no other choice. Might as well get it done with early. He's got a salmon chain that connects through there. And you see that he placed the forest tile in such a way that makes it so that if he's able to get a forest and a yellow double habitat, he can connect those nice and easily. No one here is flushing the foxes to see their options, which is really interesting. I guess that John was just pretty excited by that new tile that came out. He pretty much snap grabbed it without much considering else. I'm sure he was thinking about it on Aaron's turn that he didn't like anything else. But we see that it's almost a double habitat for him, right? The marsh connects for him. The forest connects up there. if he gets a forest piece in the middle. In fact, kind of makes the placement of that other forest piece a little bit more awkward. If he had slid it down, then actually it would connect nicely right now. So that's a limitation. And then PJ is going to take the opportunity here to say, yep, I don't need any of those foxes. Please clean up this mess for me. Whew, okay, maybe 20% speed was a mistake. Let's go. So PJ could grab a double habitat here with the marsh and water, but that's going to give him a fox token, which I guess maybe connects on his bottom left, his southwest token there. The forest and water I see does not, it connects okay. I mean, he could continue kind of like planning to loop the forest around. So that's a fine option for him if he wants to grab that salmon. I think that the salmon and yellow tile, grasslands tile, I can't tell if that grasslands is an elk or a fox, but either way, I think it's not necessarily a great choice for him right now, because he doesn't need to essentially expand out that grasslands. It just seems a little bit disparate to me, whereas the other things are actually matching, and exactly that tile that he just grabbed is, if he wants to grab salmon, he can place that tile, connect it like he's doing right now, right? It's such a way that the forests have connected. So he's got kind of a funny board in that he's got 3 forests and 3 waters, but there are only 2 connected forests and 2 connected waters. So he's limiting himself, or maybe not limiting himself, but he is pushing himself into a situation where he knows a future water and a future forest really should be connecting those habitats, because it's not just adding 1 point, it's adding 2 points by connecting things that are not quite connected just yet. I don't love this grab from Bryana right out of hand. It's a quick grab. I'm going to pause for a second. This is the advantage. Of course, I just paused my recording. I'm going to pause them for a second. This is the advantage of running at 20% speed, I guess, is I can always pause. So she grabs that elk on the forest there. But elk is not a thing she's working towards. It's also kind of like choking out the bear, which can only kind of grow backwards at this point in time. That elk is also contending, I think, for a spot where potential hawks could go, although, because you want hawks to be built in this, like, hawks with line of sight, you want to be built in these like triangle or hexagonal kind of line things. I'll draw a picture for you later. And I guess that was the left tile. Maybe she already knew that the other tiles were not that good for her. See, like that marsh water tile, I think fits pretty respectably on her board. And I believe that yellow tile for her wants a fox. So a fox is going to have to go there anyway. So I think if I was in her position, I would have considered that tile. Having the tile that she grabbed, the elk, and just getting the free nature token is completely respectable. I don't like how the elk and the bear are sort of competing for space right now. And the elk also needs to be built in such a way that it's in a formation. And that formation is probably going to be built in such a way, because of where the bear is, that it's actually fighting with the fox's space. And it doesn't matter that it's fighting with the fox's space, except for the fact that it means that we might put 2 elks next to the fox, which is not terribly efficient in and of itself. Another thing that I've noticed so far is both Aaron and PJ have grabbed salmon, right? They're sitting kitty corner or diagonal from each other on the table, whatever you want to call that. And that's something that I want to be very wary of as John or Bryana. If I'm getting into the salmon game, I'd be worried that my opponent before me and after me is also looking to grab salmon along the way, which just may make it a little bit harder to compete for those guys. Something to be mindful of as the players are moving through the game here. Thankfully, Aaron slows us down a little bit, so we got a moment here to think about what's going on. He doesn't have anywhere to put a hawk, so that left tile is really not a great option for him. He does have somewhere to put a salmon, so that's a pretty viable. He actually kind of has inherently built a little salmon run for himself right here, where he's going through. And the salmon run for him is in the south right now, right? And so he wants to try to make sure that he's building on the north, and he already has the north, so he wants to also make sure that he's building on the south side of the river, ideally so that the salmon are maximizing their scores, because the salmon want to be in a sandwich. And this is something that I find very awkward about salmon in this game, is that generally when you're building your habitats in this game, you kind of like build out pretty organically from your central point, connecting habitats over and over again, scoring additional points. But just like starting a new region, like I'm suggesting to advantage his salmon, is pretty unlikely, because your habitats, because they take up half a tile, tend to build in sort of like zigzags or lines rather than in like blobs, unless you take one of those like single habitat locations. And it can limit sort of like what he wants to do on the southern part of his map. So it's really likely that we're going to see him kind of expanding outwards from his map. But if I remember correctly, and I need to see his map again, the bottom part of his map is a lot of water. So probably what's going to happen is another potential like ring of water stuff further in the south that he can use to kind of sandwich out the salmons. But aside from, yeah, exactly what I was saying, aside from playing water down there, it's not like there's other habitats he wants to play down there. He only wants to play water habitats. So it's something that he has to be aware of in terms of when he's playing tiles. Looks like John just continued to jam some elk along the way here. He grabbed himself another marsh tile. I don't like the way that he placed his marsh tile. When they show his board, I'll explain why. Okay, let's take a quick pause here. So I keep pausing myself instead of the video, but here we are. So I can pause right now and talk about why I don't love John's marsh tile placement over here. So in the bottom right, south, okay, I'm just using bottom right. The bottom right of John's board, you can see where he placed his new tile. Now, it's a great spot for the elk, because the elk's got the little triangle. He's going to finish this little quadrangle thing. Diamond is the word that I guess we use. But the reality is that if he's building a mountain habitat, the mountain habitat probably goes in the north, right? Connects the mountain and the water, or the mountain and the forest. Also, frankly, like mountains have some bears that live in them, and he has a single bear up there. He's going to need bears in groups. So it's likely that it's going to expand that way. So the mountain aspect of that marsh tile is kind of useless right now. So I personally would have rotated that, marsh tile an additional 60 degrees counterclockwise, so that more marsh faces are facing southward, to allow him to build essentially a mega marsh, because we don't care about that mountain connecting to other things on that side of the board right now. Looks like PJ, unfortunately, the board controlled by not me, or his video controlled by not me. He's building out to the left there. He's specifically trying to obfuscate his play. Maybe he grabbed that. Looks like he grabbed that eagle, or the bird, the hawk, that went onto that marshland right there, which is from his starting tile. And then I think the habitat he grabbed was probably that yellow habitat. I think he grabbed the yellow-blue habitat, and he placed that in a way that I do really like. So you'll notice that he placed the yellow habitat, like one is facing northward, right? The one with the bear that in it is facing northward, whereas the other one is facing southward. So now he's got himself a lot of options for where his yellow habitats can go. But his blue habitat, which he doesn't care about, it because he's got a blue habitat on the west side of his board. I'm just going to switch between left, right, and west. Is a better blue habitat already. So that blue habitat, he doesn't care about it at all. But by sort of doing this upside down, like positive facing, negative facing thing, he's actually increased the number of places where he can play yellow habitats. Even though visually it actually looks like he has decreased it. If he had actually placed it sort of the other way, so that they were all facing up, he could only place yellow tiles facing northwards. So I really like the way that he did that. And these sort of like counterintuitive placements are, I think, a thematic flaw in this game, but certainly a fun mathematical puzzle. This tile is a cool tile for Bryana. Looks like she grabbed a fox off of it to score that free fox point. And ooh, I like this. Can I pause? I love this placement. This is the kind of thing that looks mechanically like a dumb, or like it looks thematically like a dumb choice. Like, why would you place it so the marsh is touching the water like that? It would be much prettier if the water touches the water touches the water. But exactly like what we were just talking about, Bryana has made it so that she actually has more open facing water now to the north side of her board than if she had placed it in the pretty fashion, which would create a choke point for her water. And she's already got a fair amount of marshland facing out to the side. So by opening up her options for water and facing the marshland outward, that's great. I do like that placement for the habitat. The problem with this tile placement, though, is that bears don't want to go there. Bears want to go next to other bears, and birds don't want to go there. So actually, while I like it for the placement for what it's doing for her habitats, it's a problem in the long run of what animal is going to go there. She's essentially committing already, and I don't think on purpose, to a second set of bears by placing that tile there. I think potentially, I didn't see what other tiles she could have grabbed, so we'll ignore that for now and say that she's committed to grabbing this tile. I think potentially thinking about where she would have wanted her hawks to go and placing this tile in such a way to accept the hawks may have been an alternate option here in placing that tile, because I think she's really diminished the flexibility that she has with what tiles can be placed. Okay, actually, yeah, there's some elks there. That's not so exciting for her. I think actually Bryana could have considered grabbing that second row, the elk and yellow and marsh tile, second column. I think would have been a pretty viable option. The problem is that the elk doesn't touch her other elk. This goes back to like I don't love throwing the elk in the corner with no backup, and it's something that I will throw some respect John's way, is that I think he grabbed that original elk. Well, no, every elk has been placed on a new tile. Not the second one. He placed them in the disorder. So he kind of had a little bit more of a plan about like where those elks were gonna go. Yeah, I don't dislike Bryana's play. It just means that she functionally right now only has 2 tiles or has to commit to having a second set of bears, which is a big commitment to do that. All right, looks like Aaron here is grabbing a fox, which he had so deftly avoided before, and grabbing this thing that requires him to play an elk is not a bad idea, because frankly that elk is going to likely come around, given that they're just sitting in play right now and people don't tend to contest the elks. He's also set himself up to start building out that sort of triangle or diamond pattern. Man, John is fast at this game, to kind of commit to that. And John makes me eat my words by having immediately a connection for both yellow and the mountain. So maybe he's not doing a mountain habitat in the north. He's going to continue essentially building it in the south there. But does that just mean that he's essentially given up on building northward? I doubt it means that he's given up, but it's a little there's just a minor mismatch there, right? John's salmon there, the salmon and the salmon runs are nice and worth points. The only awkward thing is that, of course, he's already kind of got some requirements about where he's going on his board. Like, he has cut down what he's building. Like, he's got a space for a fox, he's got a space for a bear, he's got a space for one bear and a salmon, and those kind of have to go north, not connected to wherever this like salmon run may wind up being. PJ here continues to just kind of like expand sideways, and he grabs this bear pretty quickly. I think he's distinctly avoiding elk. Oh, I see what he's doing. He is setting up the hawk triangle, and he's specifically blowing up good habitat situations to do it, because that placement for his habitats is really not ideal. He placed it in, I gotta talk. I keep pausing myself and not him. Yeah, we got to talk about this. This is important. So he's placed this goofy yellow hat on top of where the blue is right there, because his plan is almost certainly to put an eagle on that location. He's also planning on ultimately putting a yellow tile to connect the bear on the bear that's like the yellow mountain onto the tile he just placed, right? So kind of making that half face yellow that goes right there to connect that and make a 4 habitat. Now, the one thing I'm not entirely clear on is why PJ didn't just place that yellow habitat in the south at the bottom part, like right between those two bears, because what he's trying to build with the hawks are shortest potential line of sights in between them, right? Hawks cannot be adjacent to each other when they're doing this line of sight thing. And so he's putting those two spaces in between. This is going to allow him to start building what's essentially called the wheel, where he has sort of like a central hawk, and then two spaces over another hawk, and then two spaces diagonally is another hawk, and then two spaces to the northwest is another hawk, and then two spaces to the west is another hawk. And by building out these spokes, the central hawk is going to see 6 different hawks. And then each of these hawks on the outside will see the center hawk, and then they will also see the other hawks on the side. If you have if you have all 7 and you build the wheel, each of the hawks on the outside sees 3 different connections, and then the hawk in the middle no longer sees a connection. So each of the hawks on the outside is worth 9 points. 9 times 6 is 54. 54 divided by the 7 hawks that you needed to build it is about 7 points per hawk. So if you can do 7 hawks built in the wheel structure, it's just the most broken thing you can do in this game. And that is what he's trying to set up right now. I'm just not clear why he built the spoke that way instead of building it down to the south where it did already connect. So there might be a secret missing component there. Bryana's going full color rainbow here, which actually the fox quite likes, by grabbing that salmon off the board. Like I said, the salmon are going to be pretty contentious. We now see all 4 players having grabbed a salmon. I find this is commonly the case where we're fighting for salmon. I think that people do benefit if you're the 4th player and you're not playing salmon. That tends to be good because people just love salmon for some reason. I think it's something about their pinkness. They also score generally pretty beneficially, but there's something about the way they look that I think draws people in towards him. This grab right here by Aaron is clearly a habitat grab, right? We've got the forest and the wetlands there, which is a nice collect for him. And then he picks up a bear tile and he's debating, am I going to run my salmon up the middle here, or am I going to kind of run it to the south? And I don't think I agree with his decision. I think I would have liked to put the salmon where his bear is, and I would have put the bear in the south for him. I'm wondering if he thought, oh, the bear's near the forest there and there's bears in forests, but on the same token, like, bears live in mountains as well. So I think I would have put it in the south. It's a minor difference. I don't think it really is going to come into play, but I am curious what he was thinking when he had considered that. I like the salmon going right up through the middle. I think it gives them more options as well. Also, just thinking about building that same sort of like spoke situation. Okay, here we see John is continuing to sort of expand his mountain habitat. He's sort of expanded he's made it so that the wetlands can connect here. And while I didn't like his initial placement of the mountains, I do like what he's doing now, right? Again, he's kind of making it so that the mountains have some options to open up. And, no matter what, the marsh here sort of needs to connect through that space that they haven't quite connected through yet, where that bird is living. But by grabbing a bird here, he's preventing PJ from just doing some absolute nonsense right off the bat. PJ, though, will happily just kind of finish off this little bear family, which makes him not have to worry about that anymore. It connects nicely and easily. That hawk that's with the singleton water salmon has been in play for quite a while. And makes me wonder if any player essentially has the capacity to grab it. And the problem is that no one except for PJ really has an open spot right now for a hawk. Bryana does, but it's connected to another hawk, so that's a whiff on her part. These elk are grabbable by a couple players. I think, Bryana can grab one. Aaron can grab one. Bryana looks like set that up last turn, and I just kind of missed it. She's kind of again going for the nice little double habitat situation. The problem that she's having right now is that her marsh has curved so much that it's now requiring her to connect because her marsh is not fully connected yet. She needs something in the middle to connect her marsh pieces. And I think she's really, really focused. To me, I get the impression like she's really, really focused on what these habitats are looking like and thinking less about where her animals are going to go. My guess is that actually she's thinking, I'm going to be putting a salmon on here. But because we were just talking about the birds, I would have put that tile up or down one space because then it could see the other bird. And you can't quite make like the wheel with that, but she could make sort of like a triangle. And a triangle is pretty good too, because the 3 birds have 1, 2, 3 lines of sight, which is 3 points each. So just playing those 3 points each is totally respectable. It also gives you opportunities to build a parallelogram, and a parallelogram jumps from 3 points each up to more than that because it's an additional 6 points for the next hawk if you do it. What I mean by the parallelogram is like you've got a hawk there. Friend, oh my god, this is so hard to do. I'm gonna just draw it for you. All right, so that's the parallelogram. If you oh no, there we go. That's the parallelogram. With 4 hawks, you can create 5 lines of sight, which is 15 points, which is pretty good for four animals. Can't tell if PJ's very honed in or very tired, but that that big wide stare is one of those two things. All right, so it looks like we whipped around. So Aaron grabbed a water tile and bear, and man, he's immediately punished for not making that choice I suggested last turn, because now he's got 2 separate bear sets, which is really going to put him in a spot where he's competing for bears, and Bryana's sitting right in front of him wanting bears. It's not the position I want to be in. I don't know what his other tile options were at the time, but I have to imagine that wasn't really the ideal grab in some ways. Like, it could be that like elk tile that's been sitting there for a while with the salmon and bear connected might have just been better for him. Like that's a bummer. John looked like he grabbed the fox to put up in his very lonely forest. It's a very lonely fox because he's up isolated and wants to be in the middle of everything. It's kind of one of the weird things about this set is the salmon want to be surrounded by things. The fox wants to be surrounded by things. You got a lot of things competing for central space in this setup, whereas the birds want disparate. And so I think that's another reason why the birds in this setup are particularly valuable, and the players should be thinking of it. You see PJ here grabbed a tile. He doesn't even know what he's doing with his animal. He grabbed it because those 2 habitats are there, and you see that bird tile on there. He is just setting up a hawk spoke. I'm sure of it. Is there a hawk on there? Yeah, there's even a hawk. And so he was debating about which space it goes on. If he doesn't get other hawks, which is more important, which one has more kind of points connected there, frankly, what he wants to do is build all those hawks anyway. But if he's not going to build a hawk, would he rather build an elk, or would he rather build a, probably not a salmon, because he's not going to create another salmon run. Whatever it was on that spot is probably what he was debating between. Elk was the one that he covered. Fox is what he could put there instead. So I don't think he really cares one way or the other. He doesn't want it to matter. Oh, I see. And I like John's, to go back to John's turn, he actually set himself up so that he could build a little hawk connection as well with a double habitat, the like yellow and the blue both connecting there. So that was actually it's a really nice pickup for him, actually. Whew. I thought it was going to be slow, but I was wrong. That's what I got for putting it on 20% speed. Maybe I actually didn't watch the video. Maybe it's 3 hours of video, and like the last hour is just where it just says the like Dice Tower, thanks for watching. That would be amazing if I'm just making myself run out of breath to keep up for that reason. Oh man. I haven't never really played on board game tables except for at this event. And it's interesting. It's definitely a different thing, like leaning into Just has a very different vibe. All right, looks like Bryana used a pine cone situation to build a bear up in the north, and then sort of like essentially speculating on connecting through the mountains there to create a trio of bears. And then also, I guess she can then connect the water there as well. And I guess it does actually give her options about which trio of bears, right? She could connect on the west to make those bears, or actually kind of across the north to make a trio of bears up there. So she has some options, but again, she's really stuck now on having to build bears. I'm not liking this situation for Aaron in particular. Aaron, I think here could very feasibly, I tend to avoid using pine cones as much as possible, but he could very feasibly use one to grab a hawk and one of those hawk tiles. But I think what I probably would do is grab the elk for the yellow tile, which he's committed to, right? It's a 3-point elk. It's 2 points plus 1 for the nature tile. And then grab one of those tiles that has bird on it so he can start building a connection thing. He really doesn't want that one sad bird there to be worth 0 points. And that's, I think, why people are scared of starting with the birds, because if you start with the bird and you just play the 1, it's worth 0. And if you play 2 birds, they're worth 3, which is pretty paltry. So you're really kind of saying, I need to get to 3 birds. The problem is they just score ridiculous once they're past 3. So you almost need to be willing to commit to those 3 birds just to prevent another player at the table from doing the wheel thing that I described earlier. If I was in his shoes, what would I grab? Yeah, I think I would grab the 3rd column, grab that water tile, throw it underneath the salmon. Throw it underneath the salmon that he has, because then he can essentially have the bird see through. It's only one, yep, exactly that. It's only one kind of connection point, which is not quite as exciting, or one habitat connection, which is not quite as exciting, but I still think that it's worth it. Looks like he's debating whether he wants to build it in the marsh in the north. But that doesn't let him play the bird. Oh, it lets him play the bear. Yeah, because he's kind of committed to that bear. I think that actually is what he has to do. That sucks, because now, yeah, he needs bears, he needs birds. I think he's backed himself into a corner pretty early. It's not to say that he's dead. There's a lot of time left in this game for him to do all of these things. But really not supremely ideal. I will say that one fox up in the corner, though, is doing a lot of work. Oh, I wonder if that's why he put the bear in the north, because it connected to the fox there. Oh, it can be distracting, right? Like the push and pull in this game between like, oh, this is an extra point versus this gives me a little bit more flexibility later, can make a big difference. Yeah, you need the space for your bears at some point. Frankly, if he puts actually that tile, there, sure, it makes it so that he can do a 3 bear spot or a 3 salmon spot. So I guess some flexibility there, which is nice. But that bear up north like needs some support, right? He needs friends. So because by himself a bear is worth 0. So even 2 sets of 2 bears is better than kind of a 3 and a 1, right? Because it's it is. John, Elk King over here could grab that, but he's got a space for a bird, so he could scoop up one of those as well. He could actually take advantage of this bird salmon tile that's been sitting there forever, because he can drop the bird and then he can throw just north of where that bird would go, like northwest of where that bird would go. He could drop that blue tile, and that would create a situation where he's essentially arcing 3 salmon. He's already, once you've played the 1 salmon, you're already committed to, I want the 3 salmon. So why not set himself up like that? I think that might have been why he played that tile last turn. I like that. I like that for him. I can't really see clearly what the other options are right now. He could grab that elk right there. It looks like he grabbed the elk in the mountain. I I kind of like what I suggested more. Yeah, because now you're committing to a second elk group and you haven't finished the first elk group. And both players in front of you have one or two elk, so they're incentivized to take elk. I don't like that grab. I mean, it's really tempting always to just grab the guy that gives you the free nature token, but in this instance, I just don't think that I don't think it's as good as what I had suggested of grabbing that bird, making the little salmon hook through the middle, or even grabbing the bird and the fox and throwing the fox down in his little marshland mess down there. He could either sacrifice his diamond of elk or throw it just below the bird there, essentially, with the plans of putting the elk there so that the fox would be worth, a couple points. I mean, that's not ideal. I still like the salmon suggestion more. The problem with the route that I suggested is that, he is then essentially limited to just salmon and bear, which is a tough position to be in. Yep, we're just grabbing the bird. That's a sweet pickup for PJ because now it lets him kind of continue building out the salmon. He might just build a little salmon trio there because he's kind of got these birds connected out there. He's got his block there and he doesn't need to have a long chain of salmon going out to the west. He just needs them to be blocked there and then surrounded by all the tiles around them. So I wouldn't be surprised to see if he just does a trio and then calls it quits there. Nice little pickup for Bryana with the elk there. Seems like a good fit in terms of location and habitats. So that's a nice grab for her. Aaron here did flip a salmon, which matters, but I think that other tile was a mountain bird. Mountain bird's pretty awkward for him because his mountain is already connected to his bird, so he'd have to build a completely isolated habitat far away from other things for the bird to be relevant to see. So that's a little sucky for him. Looks like he's also got a marshland bird there, but he doesn't really have anywhere to play the bird. The bird being like a vertical line of sight to his other bird, right? Like, it doesn't work because it has to cross the hexagonal. You have to be facing the directions that the hexagons go. You have to cross the side of the hexagon, not the corner of the hexagon. So the bird's basically unplayable, which means he's probably down to elk. And frankly, that elk in the third column again might be the way to go for him. Really, really awkward because one of the better places for him to play that spot is actually where he placed his tile last turn. Although it's still not bad because essentially he can commit the tile that he placed last turn to being a salmon, put the bear tile there. Yep, exactly. Connects nicely with his habitats. So actually that does work out nicely because he's just saying, hey, the three on the left are going to be where my bears live. I'm going to have the salmon come straight down on the diagonal there. It's maybe 1 point or so less for the salmon run in the long run. But it's because the salmon chain, I think when it hooks, it touches more points based on the way that his board is currently set out. But it works out okay. Yeah, it's actually not awkward at all. What I said about his placement from last turn doesn't matter, so I was just wrong about that. All right, that's a salmon grab and then throwing there. Oh, okay, for the bird. Gives him some long-term, I mean, it's a direct connect right there, but also gives some long-term parallelogram options. We just got free birds available for PJ. I think that he's going to be seriously considering doing a bird pickup with a pine cone to pick up that other habitat with the bird on the right, because he just wants to keep building that out. If not, he might just pick up the habitat on the right, but he's got nowhere to throw that elk. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him throw down for the combo here. You grab the water, you put the water where the rest of your water is, which connects his little water chain over there. You throw the bird on top of it because then he's built himself a little triangle with an awkward little hawk hanging off to the side there, which is pretty good. I think the other options he could consider, he can't take a bird without taking a bird tile, so that knocks out just claiming the two options on the left. He could grab that salmon tile, which is respectable. But he's already finished the trio of bears. He doesn't want to start another bear set because there's a lot of bear contention on the board already. So he'd basically be grabbing that other tile with the plan of putting it somewhere for the elk. And he could do that and does do that. The elk connects the mountain habitat there. And he plays it in such a way that it can go essentially south because the mountains already have the option of going south and west because the mountains already have the option of going south and east. So I guess that also opens up an option for another. He's just saying, I don't think my opponents are going to grab these birds. They can't grab the birds. There's 2 birds in play. But he grabbed the salmon. Yeah, I mean, I think the birds are so powerful that I'd be curious to hear why I'm sure he'll watch this video. He seems pretty engaged. Can let me know why not pay for the bird habitat in that instance. Because playing an elk down there, I don't know. It doesn't seem that exciting for him. But I guess he does ultimately need 3 salmon, and there's a lot of salmon contention on the board. So I think that's really the answer, actually, now that I'm seeing it. The other players are not contesting as much with the birds, but everybody's indicating that they need 1 or 2 more salmon. I mean, everybody has a bird, so they actually want more birds. I don't know. Maybe I'm just talking out of my butt right now. Like, there's plenty of contesting going on. All right. Well, in this quick pause, I'm going to get some water. All right. Back to the coal mines. All right, so Rebecca here is looking to complete some bears, looking to make some salmon relevant, looking to make that bird relevant. That fox is not interesting. That elk is viable, but there's nowhere to actually, like, she wants an elk, but she needs the location to play the elk, so that's not looking good. Yeah, the problem is that in terms of animals that she could place on her board that don't match the actual tile that you picked up, she can't really place a bear anywhere. She could place a salmon, but the salmon are sort of the only one. So she really needs a salmon tile. I don't know if actually PJ grabbed it noticing that, like kind of blocking. And so I guess that's interesting. I would have expected that marsh to go just smack dab in the middle to the left because she still needs to connect her 2 marshes over there. And it would be surrounded by at least 2 things. You see now how awkward this bird is because it's off kilter of the other one there. I think actually that the placement of that bird and the placement of the tile she just placed is acknowledging that those 2 birds might need to see a point up over there. And so she's like potentially setting up for where it could go. Both those birds could go and look. But yeah, she's got 2 dead birds right now because they don't see each other and they're pretty bad at seeing the same thing anyway. Because if she puts a bird in that spot where the bear is, it's gonna kill the other. No matter what, she's got like a dead bird essentially. But I guess it does mean that bear bird tile could be used as a bird tile. It's a pretty unfortunate situation. Yeah, because if she lets herself grow out that way and she gets a bird tile that she can throw out there, then both birds get to see something, which is worth another 3 points. But now, she's sort of really hoping to get more marsh tiles to connect the marsh, needs a bird tile out there. So as time is going by, she's kind of putting more and more requirements on what she needs to do to make it so that the things that she's played are worth points, which is going to put her in a bit of a bind. I think primarily, by the way, what all these players won, I think, 3 rounds to get here. So everyone is, I'm sure, very good at scoring. And I think that I'm good at scoring, but the thing that prevents me from being a master Cascadia player is making sure that you also leave your options open while scoring. It's like people who are really good at pool, like, you can get good at pool by making shots, but you get really good at pool by making shots and setting up your next shot. And that's, I think, what this game is really about when you're playing at that kind of level. All right, what do we got? Aaron just takes from column 3. That's his spot. So that's a good spot in terms of connecting for habitats and things like that. He doesn't need the elk. It doesn't go anywhere. Can't play the bird anywhere. So by grabbing this tile, he's allowing himself the chance to grab the fox. Now I like what he had a second ago because that's the pretty play right there. But the play that he had a moment ago, I think opens up a little bit more region for him to, like, I would rotate that one 2 spaces. I would rotate that one 2 spaces clockwise. So the marshland is all basically just facing up north. And then the mountains, because now he's only got 1 spot that the mountain can grow out into, which is just a little bit limiting. And having like 2 or 3 spots, I think, would be a little bit nicer. Now, one advantage of the way that he's played it is that if he does draw another mountain marsh tile, it fits very, very nicely there. Interesting. Okay, so John sees 3 birds and says burn them, which is fascinating because he actually has lots of viable plays with the birds. I wonder if he's just trying to diminish the bird board. I guess we'll have to see if he claims one of these birds right now, if he would have been happy taking one of them. He could take that singleton bear, put it up in his spot, but then he's got to kind of plan for that in the long term. So I don't know how excited he is about that. Birds make a lot of sense. He's got a couple spots where birds go. There's one that's no choice down in the mountains down there. And the one that he just placed is nearly a double connection for habitats and allows him to finish his salmon chain because he didn't set up the trio before. So that's a good placement. And he had that bird option before. So I do think it was kind of a weird sort of defensive flush in some ways. Maybe he was saying, he was like, because bird was good for him. I wonder what he was fishing for. Because I think in a lot of ways the bird was the best tile. That's a great tile for PJ. God, that fits so perfectly into his little neighborhood. Sets up the bird scoring parallelogram right there. And then I'm an idiot on my earlier commentary because I'm used to I've mostly played with the bear family that goes down to 3. So he played that tile because it's a 4th bear family, which is a pile of extra points. So now going back to PJ's earlier turn, I completely understand why he did that because he's paying attention to the scoring things while I'm not. This is what I get for playing 4 seats while he's just playing his seat. That's that 4 right there for 13 points. Yeah, that makes the salmon grab last turn make a lot more sense because he needs a salmon and a 4th bear is very good, and he makes the spot for it. Sort of connects to his habitats. I like that a lot more. All right. Bryana would love to grab that bear, make the bear things happen. I could see a use of a pine cone here for grabbing a bear and the bear forest, connect those 3 bears. It doesn't quite connect to the forest, but it does mean a future play could connect that forest through. That would be definitely a decent option. Or just not even claiming the bear, setting it up. Ooh, interesting. Okay, so maybe she's planning on setting up kind of like a 4 or just sort of acknowledging that it'll be sort of a split 2 and 3 situation. That fox over there is going to go in his lonely little fox corner over on the side, which will give a point at the very least, plus a point for that. A little bit of a bummer. I definitely think Bryana's playing from behind right now. No one's dead in this game, but just a smidge behind the other players at this point in time. I don't think Aaron's board is bad. His foxes especially are very efficient. I just think that he has put himself into a position where he's desperate to draw certain tiles, and if they don't happen, he's going to be in trouble. So he's a little bit more at the whim of the animal bag than I like to be at this stage of the game. Looks like he found himself a decent little hawk there to score himself some hawk points rather than 0 hawk points. I like the way that he placed that habitat, made it so that he can connect over to the marsh, which has plenty of places, but opened up the forest to continue growing into the northeast as needed. I do think it's really counterintuitive how growing in the ugly way is the correct way. But I think most of the time in this game, if you're growing in the pretty way, you should be asking yourself, is there a reason why I should be growing in the ugly way? And a lot of times the answer is yes. You know what I mean, right? Pretty and ugly, where it's like the corners match as they are meant to match. I'm sure someone's on here being like, yes, you are correct. It's blasphemy to say otherwise. And then someone else is like, I think it's all ugly. Precious life-giving water. All right, John is uncharacteristically pausing. Salmon's spicy for him. He hates bears. Bears, I mean, he could start building his bear spot, but it really just has no other bear support. The elk's okay. Yeah, salmon makes a lot of sense as the grab here. And that is a placement to create a... He actually has a parallelogram of birds right now. So he can start snatching out those birds from underneath PJ, which is good because PJ's already he's got the parallelogram already like in place. Or does he have 4 or does he have 3? He's got 3. Okay. Yeah. So just contesting that, which I think makes a lot of sense. PJ distinctly doesn't need those bears. Doesn't much care for that elk. So I could see him grabbing that fox, throwing it on the spot where it's the fox salmon over on the west, and then using the water to connect over the top. Oh, no. Oh, yeah. 100% that. Because it's got a bird on it, so it builds the spokes of the wheel. Yeah, the third column, that fox goes like right in that fox forest area or forest water area next to the salmon. Then the water goes over the top, connects that way. It does kind of kill that tile all the way on the left side, which is a little bit of a bummer. He's basically playing with 2 tiles for the rest of the game if he does that. Yep. But it opens up that really, really sick bird scoring option for him. Right, he's building out the spokes. That center is the marsh, and he's just branching out from there, doing nutty stuff. But yeah, that tile on the west there is basically dead. So he's really only got 2 playable tiles, and they both want birds. So PJ's problem right now is that he doesn't want to get jammed up playing things that he can't play. He really only wants to draw birds in this instance, and he's sitting behind John, who also wants birds in this instance. And so he's definitely hoping for those to come out. If they're not coming out, he's going to have to pivot, or he's going to have to make the animals and the habitat tile work for him, or dismantle what he's already been building. So he's building something very powerful, but this is what I would describe as I was asked recently about this is what I would describe as a greedy play. He's making a choice that is going to score a gazillion points if it works out, but he is handcuffing himself towards accomplishing that. I think that's reasonable, by the way. I mean, you're playing to win, so choosing to do the powerful thing, set up the powerful thing, and then like limping along so the powerful thing can be executed should be a primary goal. All right, so we got a bear grab here for Bryana, which we kind of, I think, knew was coming. And then this tile here, what's on it? Is it a salmon? So she's trying to complete the trio salmon that goes down there. And then I think she's trying to decide whether she wants it to go diagonally this way or create a little kind of curve there. I guess it also opens up elk options in the other way. I think I would have done the curve just because there's another animal tile already connected to it. All right, and then Aaron here has got to be thinking about that bear himself. Problem is that hawk marsh tile is kind of awkward for him. He could take the hawk marsh tile and place it to the west of his fox. It's not good. It doesn't build the triangle, but it at least continues to build a leg, and then he could maybe build towards a parallelogram for the hawks. That'd be an option. The elks, I mean, he doesn't mind building out an elk thing, but he needs habitats to come with it. So they're not really friends with each other there. And he does kind of want that salmon, but I think it's a salmon on a yellow salmon spot. And the yellow salmon spot is terribly awkward. Doesn't really connect to his board in any nice way at all. I really like that Aaron's got his pine cones in a nice, neat order, whereas everyone else is like random pile. I'm a random pile person. I'm actually the person who's probably fiddling with my, with my pine cones as I'm playing, trying to use them like bad poker chips. Yeah, I think. I mean, he could be considering using a pine cone, but I don't think he has to. I like the bear and grab the marshy hawk spot. It doesn't go into the best space, but it goes into a viable space. Speaking of, I think that Bryana maybe should have grabbed that tile because the marshy hawk goes right off the side of the fox and lets her play a hawk exactly where she wanted to play a hawk to make those two hawks see that corner there. So I don't think that's the tile that just came out. I think that the second row is or second column is the one that just came out. So I mean, it gave her it opened up the third salmon for her, but she doesn't even have her second salmon yet. So I would have liked that more, I think. Because the thing is, ideally, you want to set it up so that you can be playing multiple different animals on your next turn. So you're not in a position like where you're just like looking, you're not in the position that PJ's in, where it's like, I'm basically looking for birds and birds are birds. Yeah. What else could Aaron be thinking about right now? The elks are pretty much unplayable. Maybe it's that salmon. Maybe that actually is a fox that goes on the yellow there. And so he's debating whether he wants to grab the fox yellow. And if he did, he would put it next to his other fox because then it's like touches a fox and an elk. That fox then would touch all 5 things for the full Monty. I could see that. That would be, if that's a fox space, I could see grabbing the salmon fox. But we got to do the bear thing. He's got to do a lot of bear things. He needs a lot of bear tiles, and you see him executing exactly what we talked about. I don't really see where else this marsh could go. I mean, I guess the marsh could go just to connect all of his marshes together because he's got a lot of marsh connection requirements. Like you can see that a lot of his marshes are kitty corner, which means that he has to actually play a marsh to connect them. So he does have some requirements there. Aaron's playing in such a way that is like very beautiful and good for maximizing score, but he is also a lot like PJ, kind of handcuffing himself a bit. All right, so we just flipped something that's a salmon on a salmon spot. So John certainly has the option of that. We see no birds, so he can't grab birds. He could grab, I guess, an elk and then just kind of kill the top part of his parallelogram, just throw it on there. That's certainly an option. But I think if I remember correctly, that salmon spot that we just flipped no, it's not. Okay. I thought it was a yellow and a mountain. But it is a marsh and a mountain, because he could just grab that and just throw it on his 3-chain salmon, make it a 4-chain salmon. It's not a very exciting turn, but it's plus a couple points, right? The salmon plus whatever it ends up touching, plus the 1 point for the mountain habitat or something like that. It's not bad, not great, but it's not like he's stymied by this turn. He certainly has plays. And we're getting to the part of the game where it's like, ooh, I'm hoping that I'm playing something that isn't worth 0 points. Like, this game seems to have a fair number of restrictions, right? The groups of grizzly bears, the fact that the salmon needs to be in a 3-chain, the fact that the birds need to see each other. Really, the elks are the only thing that are just like, yeah, play me. I don't care. You can play me with other people or not. I'll be 2 points. I'll do whatever you want. I'm your friend. And I guess foxes actually are pretty friendly in this game. Usually foxes are quite restrictive, but in this game, you could throw a fox somewhere and maybe it's only worth 1 or 2 points, but you can just throw it somewhere and that'd be fine. So we do see a salmon grab here. Was he going to start a new salmon run? So he goes for habitat maximization, and then he's going to try to do a new salmon run. That is a bold choice. I like it, Aaron. I'm a fan, I think. he's asking a lot of himself. You know, he's really committing to getting a lot more salmon, but he's saying, look, the player to my right, Aaron, he's got problems. He's got some other stuff going on. So the idea that he's going to do anything other than grab just the one more salmon is very unlikely. The problem is that John is also a little bit downstream from Bryana, who does have salmon issues for sure. PJ Snap took something, certainly is a very good habitat fit here. Looks like a salmon goes there. I don't remember what animal was on it though. And it looked like he grabbed the new one. So, it must have been a bird. Oh my God. He just flipped the sickest draw off the top. So it was a bird that connected to both of his habitats with a salmon on it. That's insane. I can appreciate that he's trying to think of like, oh, would I want to place it like this way so that I could connect later? But I would just grab the connection now. I don't think there's any reason to be cute. Like he was just debating with a switching. Where he landed is I think the correct choice. You can get cute with like, oh, I think I'm going to build these things out here, and I think there's this distribution of animals or whatever. I don't think that's worth it. I think just building the points connection, it's a perfect fit. Just slam it in there. Man, what a hot flip off the top. That was sick. This could be an elk burn. Well, Bryana would be happy to play an elk. None of the elk are paired with elk spaces, it looks like. I can't quite tell the mountains. The mountains are hard to see. Maybe it's a bird on the mountain. And I think the second column one is a fox, it looks like, rather than an elk. Definitely a bird on the mountain there. Yeah, I could see an elk burn here. I think that's a fox over there on the yellow. So I could see her grabbing the salmon and fox on the yellow. It's actually a pretty good tile for her because it connects her salmon through, and she can just throw the fox next to her other fox, connects right there. Totally. I think that's a great play for her. I still think that I would have burned the elk just to see if you flip something even more exciting. Now you're just giving Aaron the power to burn them out and see what he gets. I don't think it really costs too much to do that, but maybe I just am an agent of chaos and love to see the change. I think it would have been worth it to see your options though, but that was a very good tile for Bryana. She's happy to see that one come around to her. So bird, not too exciting for, it's actually okay for Aaron, right? Because he can play it on the marsh that he played last turn. I don't know that water forest space is all that great though. Elk, bird, fox options. Yeah, I mean, it's playable, but it's not the most exciting thing that he's looking for. I don't think the elk, he doesn't have space for the elk as we've discussed in the past, so that's not going to be it. I think for sure I thought this last turn too, but I think for sure he's going to burn out the elk, and then we're going to see what comes next. I guess the question we're asking is, what is he looking for? He doesn't care what flips with the mountain bird. The second column tile, yeah, isn't so exciting. Oh, the one problem, I didn't mention this last turn, but the one problem with the play that I'd suggested that Aaron did go through with the marsh and the bird last turn is that he's locked out his mountain. He'll never get more than 4 mountain. He's kind of given up on that. Which is pretty sweet for PJ. He's got 5 mountains. Oh, but he's definitely losing mountains to John. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7 that he placed last turn. So maybe he just said, look, I'm going to lose mountains. I'm just going to give it up. But it is unfortunate. It means basically any mountain tile he picks up in the future is worth 0. So he's looking at other things instead. Again, doesn't look at his options. I guess he doesn't care for the other habitats. There's not a lot in those that he wants. Because, yeah, I can see how none of them really fit in well with his habitats as they are. And that bird is playable. But I still would just be curious. I mean, I don't understand why leave it to your next opponent to see what's coming up. I'm maybe missing something fundamental in the strategy. Please get in the comments and tell me why you're not supposed to burn something out. Refresh. I don't know why I'm calling it burn it out. It just sounds dramatic. That placement up there says to me I'm probably another fox, but I could be an elk if I have to be. It's just kind of a spot where it's like he's giving himself some options finally, right? That he can like play stuff up there. Actually, right now, he's pretty happy to draw any animal except for a bird. Maybe not pretty happy, but able to play any animal except for a bird. So he's moved himself from being kind of really locked on animal positions to giving some choices with animal positions. Thank you, John, for scratching the itch. I really appreciate it. All right. John could jump over into bear world, but I think he's kind of demonstrated that he'd like to avoid that. I think he really wanted to see something with salmon, which there isn't, but he could grab a habitat with salmon on it to connect. So that's a double connection right there, but I would have at least considered... Oh, I see. He puts a fox. Oh, that's a great fox spot. I would have considered just putting it on the other side with the mountain space because then a salmon could go on it. Look at that. Perfect little salmon flip. I don't actually know that that's very good for PJ, but it's not bad. He doesn't want the bears. Doesn't want the elk. Yeah, I think he's going to take that salmon flip. I think he's going to place the salmon on the tile that he placed last turn. Then he's going to place the marshland to the northeast of his marsh bird, the solo marsh bird, because then it allows him to build out his spokes either way, depending on the tiles that he gets. Yep. That's not really a strong play so much as more or less his only play, I would say. But he drew an only play off the top, so we'll take it, right? We've got some bears here, but the bears have nowhere to live unless you use a token, so not ideal. Got an elk here, but the elk doesn't really... I guess the elk could live where the salmon is meant to live. Bird has nowhere to live, although we could use the token to grab the bird in that piece to kind of make the thing. This is the thing that we were talking about before. And the blue, I guess, could live the dream of maybe connecting. So now she's got... I mean, that's a 6-point bird right there. Admittedly, the other birds were 0 before that, but she definitely needed to get a bird there. And I think that if she had grabbed that tile a little bit earlier, the one that I mentioned, the single marsh that Aaron has, it'd be worth 1 more point right now. She just wouldn't have that spot for where her salmon goes. So, yeah, I think that was... I mean, it's funny. Hindsight is 20/20, right? Like it would have worked out in her favor this game if she had taken the line that I'd suggested. We like bears, Aaron. We like bears and salmon. Lots of choices here. No way he's grabbing that elk tile. Doesn't really need it. So the salmon tile is so for habitats. I think he's going to grab a bear. A bear with one of the yellows and the elk that lets him build a triangle of elk. That's a decent option. There is that yellow and green spot with the bear, which connects very nicely to habitats. I guess that would be for another fox in the long run. But I think the fox is worth a couple points, whereas the elk is worth like 4, right? 2 to 5 to 9. So I think opening up that spot for the third elk there in the grasslands pretty viable. He does need to connect his marshes, so that's something to think about too. But I think the tile that has a marsh on it isn't so ideal. Yeah, animal-wise, right? Because it's the elk and a salmon, so it Didn't really want that. He wants a place for his bears to live. But bears don't live in the marsh. They hate the swamp. It's so swampy over there, and there's no salmon running through the swampy rivers. Actually, there's a lot of salmon running through the swamps in this game. Okay, so he's going for the habitat play over the elk play, which I respect. Oh, that one I wouldn't understand. I mean, I guess it speculates on more forest space, which is fine. But that's not... Oh, I guess it is better for elk. I see. I like this thinking, Aaron. This is cool. I think that I would just go for the straight up play of dropping it right there. But by playing it on the other spot, he's saying, look, I could, if I get a fourth spot, connect the elk to build a diamond. Did we freeze? They're still playing. They're still talking. I think the camera just froze on their side. Or maybe he just froze. It's quite an ambitious play. I think I would just take the base one because he already has enough requirements with the bears. Ideally, really would like to make it so that he gets a fourth bird for the parallelogram, which he needs to like build out in the marsh. Like he needs to connect his marsh and make a spot for the bird to go out there, which is pretty important. What did he choose? He chose the greedy spot. Okay. I mean, I respect it. You got to win, right? But now he's saying, look, I need a forest to connect that. I need to throw an elk there. I need to connect that spot, put another elk there. I need to connect my marshes. Ideally, I the end of the bird. Like, there's a lot of like things that he can do. And I know earlier I was talking about keeping your options open, but that's not keeping your options open so much as saying I have a lot to accomplish before the end of the game. And I think that might be biting off a little bit more than he could chew. What turn are we on? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Turn 13. So 7 more animals left, 7 plays left for Aaron. Yeah. I'm getting more and more convinced, by the way, that I was led astray by how long this video is, because it says we're only halfway through, and we are, I guess we're only a little bit more than halfway through. I do think there's some extra time at the end, so it's not actually 3 hours. Excuse me. It's only 9 o'clock, but I've been sick, so... we didn't even get a chance to assess what John was doing over here. A speed grabber. That marsh needs to connect. I think he's trying to keep it open for that fourth elk spot. I think elk marsh spots are not very common. That's kind of like a habitat connector, but it's not a very good one. Let's see what animal he's holding in hand. Makes a big difference. If it's a bird, I'm like, cool, yeah, go for it. That's fine. He's holding a fox. That's a lot sadder. If he's holding a fox, I actually think that forest is supposed to go up a couple spaces to connect the forest biome into one big biome. See what he neglected. He didn't take the bear, which is fine. He's demonstrated that. He didn't take the salmon. I'm going to assume that salmon's not paired with a salmon spot. Otherwise, it'd be nice for his second run here. We took a bear. I don't love this. I'm going to take a quick pause on the video here. Yeah, the bird elk spot was bad. The salmon was unplayable on his board. The other one was a bear. Oh, he had to take a bear. But why not take the bear spot with the elk on the marsh? Because that's why you didn't play the marsh down there. I think this is an instance of getting a little bit greedy with the habitats, and it's a mistake. I think he should have just grabbed that marsh spot, connected his marsh, right? Because you can see the bottom 2 marshes are not actually connected to the top 3 marshes yet. He needs to connect them. He needs an elk to go there. So an elk spot with a marsh that connects them is perfect. I think that's a mistake for which habitat he grabbed. I can appreciate why he had to grab the bear. It's at least a point, even if he doesn't get any other bears that are there. And now makes it so that he can grab bears, which is actually good for him. My money here is on Fox Bird, because with Fox token bird habitat, he can place the, no, because he needs to leave that Fox spot open, so that doesn't actually help him out. Bear's not very good. Salmon's viable. A bear. So this is a habitat play because it connects the habitat through for those yellows that he set up ages ago. And he's going for a second bear run, making it so that he's actually not dead on that tile that I was talking about. It's pretty dead there. That's interesting off of the back of John just grabbing a bear. We'll see if that bear ever scores. I guess it does open up his options, but he needed because he was so hemmed in on needing essentially birds. Or maybe he's just trying to kill Bryana. just was stressed by taking bears in front of her. The bird's pretty bad for Bryana. The fox is definitely playable, although the water bird tile is not so great. I guess you could throw it like up north of the bear there, just so that it's gives you an option for playing a hawk in the future. Salmon is good for her. She wants that 3rd salmon tile. Oh, there we go. And that's a bear spot. Perfect. Okay, we like that. Oh, I like that placement a lot. I think she acknowledges that she's really good at the habitat side of this game. She acknowledges that the water is not going to get anywhere. So she's opening up the opportunity for the forest to connect to the mountain as well and get a forest mountain tile. That's cool. Little inland lake there. Nice play, Bryana. I like that a lot. All right, this was a quick pick for Aaron, so I assume he was looking at everything else and said it was bad. The way he was about to place that marsh tile was about to be a disaster. Yeah, that works. So did the one previously. That doesn't work. You gotta have the 2 marshes touch. And then just throws a fox on there. Yeah, that's fine. It also opens up his option to have parallelogram out there. Like we said, he's needed to be connecting his marsh spaces. This is the first step in doing that. Still got the 1 marsh space not connected, but that was good. And the fox is worth 3 points right there. 4 points right there because it gives a point to the other fox as well. So that was actually a pretty bomb turn for Aaron. He's pretty fast on that. Yeah, he needs those fox spaces. All right, John making this risky salmon play is I think starting to feel the pain of that because salmon are not coming out. The player in front of him needs to grab one still. That's going to be a little tricky for him. And yeah, man, if he had grabbed that tile that I'd suggested last turn, he could just grab one of these elk tiles right now. And then either, connect the yellow onto his salmon glut there just for an extra yellow point, or throwing it kind of worthlessly down near his salmon so that he can continue building that salmon out. I think he's got to grab the bird here. Foxes are not especially great for him, so I think he's grabbing the bird, which is maybe better than having grabbed the elk anyway from what I suggested last turn. That tile, the mountain and yellow tile, it can double biome connect for him. It's not a very exciting spot for the animal in the future, but it's certainly It's 2 points for the mountain and the yellow mountain and the grassland, and makes it so there's a 3-point fox that can be played because it's 2 points for the fox. And I'm talking about all the way in the bottom right for him. I'm actually, now that I'm looking at it more and more, I actually think this is kind of a awesome pick for him. The bird's 6 points, right? Because it completes the triangle. It gives him 2 line sights. And the habitat's 2 points. Yeah, this is actually a bomb turn. Oh no, not there. I guess that spot's a little bit better for the fox. But only a little bit better. I don't think it's worth it. I think you throw it down. Right? I'm talking about like basically directly below there. I don't like this. I don't even like the placement of it because that mountain facing outward, no one cares about that. He wants to have his yellow facing outward because that's the only thing that's connected to this biome here. I like the grab. Oh, that's not where the bird goes. No. What if you don't get another bird? Oh. I mean, I guess he's leaving himself open for a fox, but that's not worth it. It's a 3-point. That's a 3-point miss. I think that's a total mistake. I might be missing something, but like, I think that's a miss. Lucky elk burn for Jonathan. 2 elk were really hurting him. Bear's not bad for him. Elk is bad for him. Salmon is playable for him. So he could take the salmon here. He could take the salmon here with the mountain bird and just throw the mountain bird in the north. It doesn't connect to any biome, but it does connect to his wheel. So that's what I'm leaning by default towards. On the right side, he could do... that's actually what he's going to do. On the right side, he can grab a fox. Fox goes in the spot between the birds and bears. And then he can throw that bird spot up in the part of the wheel up in the top left, touching the salmon there, which he could have done even without the elk burn. So that's a good space for him too. I mean, I guess more than anything, he wanted to see a bird and he didn't see a bird, but even still. Even still, that's the choice. Grabbing the bear and the salmon tile. Yeah, grabbing column 2 or column 3 are crazy. I think it's between column 1 and column 4. And I think column 4 is just better. I think it's more points. The salmon itself is only worth 2 points. 1 for the salmon, 1 for the token. I guess in the long run, it's maybe worth 2 more, so 3 or 4 points. Actually, I guess the fox is also only worth 2 points, but the habitat is worth a point, whereas it's not worth a point otherwise. The other thing, too, is that I guess you got to consider what other people may or may not take, because he might actually want to take both these tiles. I think people have demonstrated that a mountain hawk is bad for them. That tile on the left has been sitting there forever. Aaron, I think, actually would grab that tile with the salmon and the mountain hawk because he wants a third salmon, and he could do the same thing that I'm suggesting right now with PJ, where he just throws it up in his parallelogram up there. It doesn't connect to his neighborhoods, but it's fine. Interesting. So he pays a token. To open up another salmon spot. So instead of kind of doubling down on birds, he wants it so that he can take a bird or a salmon. Is he competing for marsh? Is that what he's thinking? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in marsh. 1, 2, it's 4 or 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in marsh. It's very close. Everyone's got like 6 or 7 in marsh. I feel like I'd want to get out of it so if I was him and just focus on other stuff, like grabbing that water as like a freebie water. I don't know that I'm not convinced it was worth paying the point for that compared to what I suggested, but I guess it does open up his options. But you don't need to open up your options if you could just use the pine cones to make your options good in the future. I have to assume that he's trying to get in the mix with the marshes. It feels like he's playing from behind, which is just not ideal. Kind of unexciting play for Bryana. It's a 4-point play, basically, right? It's a connection line of sight for that bird, and then one for the thing. It doesn't even actually connect to the mountains, so she's hoping to connect that eventually. She didn't need the salmon tile. Oh, there wasn't a salmon tile. She did need that bear tile, although I think that was maybe a bit of a like hate draft, taking the powerful birds out of play, because it was only an okay play for her. I think grabbing the bear, just sort of like locking that in, throwing that salmon tile into play, which like connects to her big yellow spot, and she could just kind of connect it to her long salmon run for a penny of points or whatever. Yeah, it was between those two. I mean, it was one or the other. I think it feels a little bit like it was a defensive play. Was it both? Oh, they flipped a bird onto it. So I guess it's too appealing to say no to that. I think Aaron would have certainly taken it to complete his parallelogram. The parallelogram's worth 369 points, even though it doesn't connect to the habitat, so 10 points. Okay, so now that I'm talking it out loud, it was just maybe too good for Aaron, so it was a defensive play. Because it was okay. It was okay for it certainly wasn't bad. I think the other one is close. Maybe 4, maybe 5 points, so it's close. It's interesting. This game is you really can't police that much in this game. I think that the most you can police is usually the player to your left, which is what we just essentially saw happen here with Bryana. Aaron's already got piles of foxes on his board. Would really not like to take one, but could take one and throw it up in the top right there. He could take his elk for the plan of trying to go for that elk goal there. However, that habitat tile is not his dream. He wants a habitat that lets him play another elk out there. In fact, actually, I kind of think that the first column is maybe Aaron's play here. He grabs that fox, he throws it in the top right, he grabs the yellow, he throws it over where he could then make the elk diamond. What turn are we on? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Aaron really needs one more salmon. He'd like another bear for his guy up top. And a bear habitat for it. So that's 1. That's 2. He'd like a bird to finish his parallelogram. That's 3. He'd like 2 elk to finish the diamond. That's 5. And then this turn is 6 right here. Yeah, he is tight on time. So maybe grabbing a fox is a little sus because can't pull it off. He could spend a pine cone to pick up the elk and the elk habitat. Throw the elk habitat down, put the elk in it because it makes a triangle then. And then if he ends up getting another elk later, it's not the most exciting because you're paying a point just to up from 5 to 9 points. So paying a point for 4 points. So it's a 3-point turn. I guess he also drops a relevant habitat. He doesn't look like he's in serious contention for yellow. So it's really just 1 point. The fox itself is just worth 3, though. I think the first column. wonder what he's thinking about. He's got to be thinking about using one of his nature tokens. Oh, he's also looking around the board, seeing what other people want to do. All right, well, let's do the same thing. John, or we'll just do it. Love it. We're here for it. Yes. Oh, are you gonna go for a habitat connect and just give up on the elk dream? I think something's got to give, right? He's either giving up on the elk dream or he's giving up on the bear dream in the long run here. We know where the fox is going. It's going up top there. That's nice and easy. They slouch more and more through the evening. The camera must follow. Yeah, I mean, it's either connect the forest across. I guess you could throw the fox on that space, or you open up your elk diamond. And I think you open up your elk diamond. And just hope you get another. I mean, any forest tile solves that problem for you in the late game. Whereas it fits the yellow thing and it's an elk. Like, that's a more stringent requirement than just any forest tile. Yeah, I like that he's playing it with the yellow facing outward, but I think I would have ticked it one more turn to just open up even more options for where yellow could go, because that green is not connecting to anything. Doesn't really matter. I think it's so limited, so stringent anyway. Oh, John's bonus salmon there, man. Just looking really sad. So another turn where he could have grabbed an elk if he had that elk tile underneath the diamond there. Yeah, that hurts. That really hurts. Because that tile with the bear and fox there is just a hanging chad that's not doing anything. So he could grab a... Salmon can't go anywhere, so without a nature token, he's not grabbing the salmon. Bear can't go anywhere, so it could go somewhere, but it's just going to live by itself, so the bear's bad to go somewhere. Elk can't go anywhere. Fox can go somewhere. So this is probably a fox grab. It goes over in that area on the right, not where the bird is supposed to go, but right above it. But that blue tile is not so exciting for John. There's not a lot of good spaces for his birds. He could place it on the bottom left of his salmon because it would see two other birds. There's an opportunity to see two other birds, but then he's saying, I need to draw 2 more bird tiles before the end of the game. And that's bold. So instead he's going to speculate on a spot where that, he's costing himself a point if he doesn't get another water. But he's giving himself 3 points if he gets another bird. I think I kind of like my weird suggestion to speculate on 6 points. If you're going to speculate on 3 points, I'm speculating on a couple points, right? So like, he's also not winning water, right? Like there's so much other water out there. It's just, so if he gets another water tile, he can connect the water tile. So he's gambling on whether he's going to get that 1 point, and then he's gambling on whether he's going to get the points for the bird. But if he throws it where I suggest, down in the bottom left below the salmon, and he gets the 2 more birds, like he's kind of speculating on there, then that's 6 more points. If you think you're not going to get the 2 more birds, then you just connect the water to the water and be done with it. But he's sort of taking the middle road, best of both worlds, right? But I think choosing one or the other would maybe be a bit more, it's certainly more decisive. Fascinating. PJ goes for a whole burn here. I think the salmon tile was perfectly respectable for him, but I think he's just making I I don't like this. I think I would have just grabbed that tile on the left. You get a salmon, you throw the salmon on the spot, and then you grab that tile with the bird on it, throw it up on the river there. Lots of options on it too if you decide to change. I'm not sure what he's fishing for. All these foxes are certainly playable. So I guess he could grab that third column now with the fox and the bear spot to make that bird playable. So he instead snaps up the bird, which makes sense. I think he flushed 4 birds, so he did get to find one. I think there was a 3 flush in the middle there, 3 of a kind flush. And then looks like he's just habitat connecting there. And maybe giving himself a chance to like play an elk. He's just opening up his options. I think he could have made that push for the bird tile last turn. I think I like the salmon more. I'm very curious why he didn't just grab the salmon and bird tile and connect like that habitat tile on the left, and then like connect that up to the top spoke of his wheel. Because it also would give him another nature token that's more cycling for when he's like doing his bird rush or whatever. Stupid birds. I think if there's a card in Cascadia that deserves to be nerfed or changed, it's this one. You can compete with it, right? Like you can kind of block it or whatever. But we see that the players are, and it's still just so freaking good. His 5 birds right now, right, are worth 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 21. So 4 points each. Yeah, more than 4 points each. Pretty nutty. Okay, what do we grab? Bryana. It's another salmon. Okay, another salmon and a mountain to make our mountain thing live. That's cool. Although is that what lives on there? I can't quite see what lives on there. It looks like maybe a bear and a bird, which are like the worst things to live on there because you're going to connect a bear through the middle there to get a 4 bear family. So it might be just like she's got a lot of dead tiles in terms of like, yeah, you don't want to play a bear here and you don't want to play a bird here, but there's a bear and a bird that can live here. Like functionally right now, I think Bryana is looking at, I can play a bear, maybe a fox. And frankly, that's not ideal because it hurts my bear situation, but then I guess it opens up my bear situation, which is really not good. Kind of has been boxed into a little bit of a corner here. I wonder what PJ keeps looking up. Like, what's he trying to understand the ridiculous network scoring? Probably not. He's been playing for it, so I think he gets it. All right. Did you grab something, Aaron? Are you just thinking about it? No, he's just fiddling with a card. Okay. I mean, he set up the elk thing. So, yeah, we got to go through on the elk. We don't have the marsh thing. We don't have birds. So him just pushing through on that makes a lot of sense. There's that triangle right there. And like I said, any forest solves this problem. So he's just dropping it there to connect the forest biome. I don't even know if they're called biomes in this game, but that's what they're called now. Bunch of crap for John. He doesn't need any of this stuff. I think he's going to flush. I'm wrong. Oh, because that's a different way to make his elk thing. Oh, yeah, great. Wonderful tile for him. Total whiff on my part. I'm going to blame playing 4 seats. That's what I use my defense. Oh, let's go. We like a bird. Here's a token. We're going to grab a bird in that tile on the left. Not the luckiest pull for PJ, but seeing a bird out there is very, very good for him. It means that, a situation from last turn, I think like this game's pretty similar. It goes around, he grabs the salmon last turn. You can't really know what would come out because of the flush and everything in the middle, but he wouldn't. He would have, I think, like 2 extra nature tokens right now, and but be 1 bird short of what his situation was last turn, but up a salmon. I'm gonna say that I liked my sequence more. Seems good. That's 6 points, 7 points because of the water. And the water is relevant. I think he's actually contesting water. He's got 7 water right now versus, I think, pretty close for Aaron and Bryana. It's also nice because it's actually more because it connects to salmon as well, right? That salmon run that goes roughly through the middle there. It's good. It's his turn. We don't need to see his turn anymore. I think Bryana needs stuff. That bear, probably. I think that bear is what we talked about her needing. Grabbing that, and then grabbing that elk spot is fine because now she can take an elk too. The question is whether you throw the elk to connect to your mountain and then start a potentially new elk world, or whether you throw the elk down at the bottom of her diamond. Even though it connects none to her biome at all, it then opens up the opportunity to finish. That is one of the harder choices in this game. I think what it comes down to is if she's contesting for mountain spots. So we see that PJ's got 5 right now. I'm sorry about the camera. I can't change this. Maybe upwards of 7, depending on what happens with his spots. I want to say Bryana has like quite a bit. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mountains. So yeah, she's fighting for mountains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, but John has 8 mountains. So yeah, I mean, essentially grabbing another elk is 2 points by itself, or 4 points in the big cluster. And then putting the mountain there is plus 1 point. So the question is, do you want to guarantee 1 point with the upwards of 2 more points, or would you want to do the upwards of 4 more points, depending on how things break out? I think in Bryana's situation, I mean, the other thing too is that like, if you get an elk that can live in the grassland or in the forest and put it to connect the diamond that way, that's frankly more ideal. So if she ends up getting 2 more elk between now and the end of the game, 4, 8, 12, 15, 16, 17, I think she had 2, 5, 8, 10, 13, 14. Yeah, so she had 17 because she went first. So we got 4 turns left for Aaron. He needs an elk. He needs a salmon. He'd like that bird. That's 3 of the 4 turns. So I think the bear dream is dead. We're giving up on the bear. I guess it could be a second bear. Action 4. That's Aaron's path to victory, is drawing those birds or those animals that live in the appropriate habitats, because he doesn't need a habitat for the salmon. He doesn't need a habitat for the elk, but he does need a habitat for the bird, and he does need a habitat for the bear. And he also really would like it to be a marsh habitat for the bear so that he can connect it. There are no marshes. There are a crap ton of yellow tiles, and there have been for ages. He doesn't want a fox. They're 2 points. He would take that. So I guess he could do the bear thing, right? The bear's 5 points, I think. Yeah, 5 points, because currently the bear's worth 0. So he could spend a token, take a bear and the spot that the bear lives in, and drop it to connect the bear. That's 5 points, but it's bad for the habitats because it doesn't connect. He really would much, much, much prefer a marsh spot that the bear could live on that goes there. So he could push his luck a little bit on that. I think grabbing the elk seems completely viable right now because he wants to play that elk. And then I didn't see what the habitat was for it. Pretty garbagey for him, frankly. I mean, it expands one of his habitats, but be it a salmon or be it a thing is not exciting. In fact, he really doesn't care about any of those habitat tiles. I think it is a little interesting in this game that you can't flush habitats, but you can flush animals. And I often find myself wanting to flush habitats. I mean, they're the counter of the game, so I think that's why. Makes sense, but I want them to die. Aaron's checking everyone's boards. I'm more inclined to do that when I'm like, is this thing going to wheel? But I don't think he's excited about any of the stuff that's in play. So, maybe he's just being very precise, which I respect. That's totally fine. Don't think there's a ton to be gleaned here. Oh, he's debating whether flushing is... Oh, he's doing a split. So he's doing the bear thing. He's grabbing his 5 points for his bear. Oh, I'm such a dummy. I keep making this mistake. You can play 4 bears in this game, not 3. God, there's so many bear setups where it's 3 bears are the number you want. So he's going for his 4th bear because this does also connect to habitat there. So 2 is 5. Is it 5, 8, 13? Is that right? I wrote down my notes over here. 5, 8, 13. Okay, so this is 5 points, and then it being water there is actually 6 points. So this is similar to the play that I was suggesting before, but is just strictly better because it doesn't block out his marsh situation and it increases his water situation a little bit. He is deciding whether he wants, because he can double habitat, right, by putting it on the right side there. Oh, I see. He probably needs it for the bear space because he wants to leave the salmon space there. So he's not going to double habitat. He's going to place it as a single. Even if he was going to place the bear in the middle there, he'd then want to leave a space open for the salmon. Because currently salmons are nothing. And if he gets a salmon, they're like right in the middle there. If he gets one more salmon, the whole salmon chain gets unlocked and they'd be worth 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12-point salmon he's looking for. Yeah, that seems about right. I don't think it much matters. Yep, that's better because it touches a salmon. And I guess actually in theory, the yellow can connect to the yellow, so that's good too. Fox flush, hell yeah. John is happy to see that free flush. He's looking for salmon. Pretty bad flopperoo. I foresee a nature token for a bear and bear tile situation, which he will throw to connect the water. So his speculative water points are there. And making that 1 bear into 2 bears. I'd say, wow, I'm so smart, but the elk were basically unplayable for him at this point. Yep, another free flush. I don't know what the odds of these things are. I think that they do increase as the bag goes on because you tend to have stuff that people have picked up and the bag gets smaller. No birds, but salmon's just fine, right? Yeah, I think you take this. The fox is actually quite good. So fox or salmon, they're all fine. So you can take the fox on the right so that you can take a bird habitat and complete the wheel. It's really bad for your habitats because it didn't connect to anything over there, but would be certainly an option. Oop, I did that too much. The salmon allows him to place forest over on the side there so that he could throw another bear down. That's pretty viable too. And in general, I think leaving the foxes out there, like, there tend to be so many foxes. Like, people don't tend to leave the room for the foxes. And the salmon we know everyone needs, so this is kind of just making it tougher for your opponents. Yep, I like that play. Notice here that he's not really opening up the forest options anymore. He's actually making it so that he could connect the water over on the side there. I think that's a mistake of a play. I think he's supposed to rotate that a little bit outwards, give himself a little bit more options for the forest, because he still needs to connect the water anyway. So I think that should have been rotated. So bad at this. Clockwise? I think it needs to be rotated clockwise. Just more options. I don't think it matters though. It's a minuscule, tiny difference, to be honest. All right, we had a fox flush. We don't care about the salmon, but it's playable because it's on a salmon spot. Just a couple weenie points for us. We probably do care about the elk because they're worth 2 points plus 1 for the nature token, so 3 points. So I think fox is looking pretty viable. We'd also really like to connect our marsh tile because we haven't quite finished doing that yet. The bear's not so great because we finished our bear family. So yeah, I think we're looking at elk here, and then Bryana is just debating between either column 2 or column 4. Column 4 gives a lot more flexibility, and I think endgame foxes here are worth a couple points. There are certainly some places where birds could go as well, and just connecting water here is, let's see, 1, 2, rings. I mean, it is glitzy. We do like it. Very platinum looking. I don't know what off-duty ninja is, but that's clearly the sponsor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so not really in contention for water, but you should connect them because it's worth more points to have more things there. Aaron could take a lot of stuff here, but he really needs that salmon. I think you take the salmon, you connect your yellows to each other in the bottom right. Gives you yet another option to play a fox. Not that that's what you're really looking for, but hey, why not? I will say, earlier in the game, I was saying that Aaron's kind of forced himself into a handful of restrictions, and we are seeing that play out right now. But they're slotting in. Like he has played, I think, quite masterfully towards like building around those restrictions, filling them in when he has the opportunity, and then giving himself outs when he doesn't have the opportunity. That's really interesting. He says, I'd rather have the elk than I would have the salmon. That is a gutsy play. And then not connecting the yellow here. Just after I was chatting him up, I'm gonna say I don't agree with this play. You already have a space for the elk. I guess that's a location where you could play a bird ultimately. But if you're planning on playing a bird ultimately, just take the -1 point and throw it on your parallelogram, because the parallelogram is that's a 9-point bird. So just throw it on your parallelogram. Acknowledge that you're going to be short a point on this crappy placement of the biome up there. I don't like it. Yeah, because now he really needs a salmon. And yeah, Bryana in front of him doesn't need one, and PJ in front of him also doesn't need one. And it is possible that John has just given up on the dream of one. So it's possible that it just sits there. But people can flush things. I don't think there's that many left in the bag. Oh, man, I really don't like that habitat placement. I think opening up the spot for the bird is better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I guess I got to count how many water PJ has for competing for that, but That's the advantage right there, right? So PJ has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. I mean, admittedly, it's giving him right now first place on the water, and PJ is the player that you need to attack. So I do respect that aspect of it. It's got to be why he grabbed it for the water contest. It's just a couple turns left, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Yeah, still a few plays left for that to change. And if PJ grabs another water, he gets 2 more water, right? Because of the way that he's played in the bottom left there. So, yeah. Like, suppose it comes back to Aaron's turn next turn, and there's a bird and a salmon. Like, what's he supposed to do? Sure, bear here's another 4 points or whatever, so that makes sense. Kind of connects with our friend. I think that's John officially saying he's given up on the salmon dream. Here they come marching out to make my concern about salmon being contested just less and less real. PJ could take a crappy elk here. That'd be fine. And then like throw that bear token, I guess, on his forest for if he ends up connecting more to that bear. But I think it's possible he's just going to flush. He could also grab one of those salmon tiles with their salmon friends and just connect it to his long chain there. But there's not really anywhere exciting for it to go. It doesn't connect to yellow and the salmon at the same time, so that feels pretty bad. We're going to take a quick break. All right, let's dive back in. Man, we are at 2 hours. This is a long game. Maybe this isn't at 20% extra speed. Maybe I just misunderstood the settings when I loaded it in. Who knows? I think we're on PJ's turn. Kind of lost track. 4, 7, 8, 11, 13, 16, 17 versus 4, 8, 12, 14, 17, 18. Yes, it is PJ's turn. He's about to take his 18th tile, which means we have 2 rounds remaining after this. I think PJ's doing very, very well with the bird wheel. I think that John or Aaron, if they can finish their parallelogram and PJ can't finish the bird wheel, could be in the running. But like all of PJ's animals are doing a lot of work except for the one bear. Okay, so he decides to save his tokens maybe for a future turn and just grab a basic little 3-point elk here, 2 points, and then 1 for the fox, which is a low and slow turn, but he knows he has 2 turns left, so not a lot of time left to use his nature tokens anyway. Bryana, I think, just got jammed up a little bit on placement, the hawk placement. Her other stuff is okay. And I think she's going to score well in the habitats. She's done a lot of nice splitting, although she might end up being second in a handful of them, which is going to hurt. Yeah, everybody really has done a pretty good job with their habitats overall. It's a lot of 6s and 7s and 8s out there. Ooh, I got the hiccups now. I needed to stop to get some food because I realized I was starving. So the problem that Bryana's having in this spot is it's like, what's even the ideal draw? The other players have things that they like need to accomplish, and there's nothing that's terribly exciting, and a couple of her tiles are sort of, nearly dead tiles. A marsh is great because it connects her marsh, which wasn't yet connected. That spot's an interesting choice rather than putting it in the middle. I think it's just strictly more points if she puts it in the middle because it connects to the salmon. and touches more unique things. I think that might be a miss. I'm trying to think of what else that does for her. I think that's supposed to just been in the middle spot. I think that's just an oversight. Missing something? Maybe. I mean, again, you're not going to be surprised to hear this, but I think that Aaron needs to grab his salmon at some point. I mean, actually, there's a bear tile out there. That's 5 points to throw it on his bear. So if he's going to push his luck with the salmon again, he sure can. I mean, again, he'd really rather a marsh with that bear. Because that's 2 additional points, and then gets him at 7, which is a very dangerous number. It puts him tied for first place with Bryana for the number of marshes. So having the marshes is pretty significant. I think another reason, it's a lot of forest competition between Aaron and PJ right now. Water competition between Aaron and PJ right now. Foxes. He's got some yellows. A couple mountains. Yeah, Aaron's done a nice job with specializing. I think he might be in contention for the yellows if he does connect his yellow across. He'd be at 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He'd tie with John. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and Bryana. So, yeah, one of them might just punch him back down again. So it might not be worth the effort. 5-point bear, 12-point salmon. I guess the convenient thing is that the bear is now. But I think that If you're scared of the birds as I am, the bird network as I am, then you're saying, look, my opponent here is PJ. I need to contest the marsh, so I need to leave my marsh connector open still. In which case, you can't grab that bear because it doesn't touch. So instead, grab the salmon, and then you can just connect your yellows. I mean, it's 2 points even if you don't win it, even if the others contest you. Yeah, it's the same as last. I'm suggesting the exact same play that he could have made last turn. So clearly it was right to not make it last turn because he could make it now. So we get to eat a little crow on that. That's fine. I still think it's good to do. The wheel, man. The wheel. What is it right now? That bird sees 2. That bird sees 3, 3, 3, 2. So 9, 11, 13, 39. 39 points across 6 birds. 6.5 apiece. Ugh, such a busted tile. Parallelogram is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 15, 4 points each. Yeah, it's just, I think PJ is just, there's just too many points for that crazy bird tile. I wonder if it should be banned or changed. Like, I do think that it is the defining tile of the base game set. I think they're coming out with an expansion. Everything else, I think, follows a similar track, similar pattern, similar point value. But that one just is the most explosive because of the way the things can connect. And penalizes you for only having a couple, whereas a lot of other things, like, you get a few points. It's not so bad. But it doesn't even take that long to like break even with other animals. It just is difficult because you have to set it up specifically. And I guess that's meant to be a bit of a challenge or a pressure on the habitats, which is fine. But I guess he's counted that forests are his competition zone rather than getting the double yellows. So I didn't 3, 6, 7, 8. My guess is that that's PJ's got 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so he's just contesting the forests, which is fair because that's his primary opponent. So I can see, doing that because if it breaks the tie or if he wins the tie, he's cost himself a point by not going into the yellows. Maybe not even getting like second on the yellows too. But that's the delta that he's going against the player who's almost certainly winning is well worth it. John is going for the bear. Sure. It's a nice, easy 5 points. Connects to the forest biome here. That's cool and easy. Our resident speed player. And he's sandwiched between two bird people. Fox is pretty viable. Fox is 3 points. He could do Fox and Forest. 3 points, can compete back for that Forest. I think that's totally fine. The other thing is flush for a bird and then use your other token to cross grab the bird placing tile. Because it's 9 points if you hit. But if you miss, what are you looking for? A bear, which is 5. Another fox, which is 3. That's pretty much it. Elk's playable at 3 points, I guess, but then it also stops your bear from being played. Yeah, I think I would just grab the fox and do the bird gambit next turn. I mean, I guess you're hoping that no one grabs the bird habitat. Oh, was I playing a game right behind this table and didn't even notice? Maybe the case. Oh no, Scott's setting up for the next game, I think. Scott's the judge in the background there. He's going for it. Flush them all. I think I would have waited. I don't know if it matters. I mean, I guess if that bird tile goes away, it's a bummer. And if you pull a bear, it's a fine consolation prize. The fox going on the bird habitat is fine because you can just, oh, there you go. There it is. Pay 1, snap the bird and the bird habitat. Throw it in a place that doesn't connect to your habitats. Boom, 9 more points. Yeah. Seems good. The wheel. The wheel wins. It's going to be a fox flush. Sure. We're happy with the elk, so we'll just grab that. That's fine. Guess we're not interested in those salmon tiles in the middle that are just clogging things up. There is the marsh that Aaron was maybe looking for. For sure, we're going to see a fox flush here. Bird's also worth 9 points for him, so I expect to see him do more or less the same thing. But I think it's basically a foregone conclusion that PJ is going to win at this point. The wheel is just too powerful. I don't know the order of the standings at the end, and I'm not sure how well we'll be able to see the score. I guess I could pause and just listen to the actual recording. You're not taking a fox, right? Flush him. Is he thinking about if he wants to like pay a pine cone to flush first and then see if he draws 3 so he can flush then? I don't think that makes any sense. I think the ideal draw for him is a bird because it's 9, even if he has to pay a couple points for it. Let's see what the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So he could tie on the greens if he gets the greens. So that's 3 points. So yeah, a marsh and a bear, although there's nowhere for the bear to live. Salmon's nothing. Alka's 2. Fox's whatever 2 or something like that. There's just nowhere for the bear to live. Yeah, I don't think there's any real choices here. Playing to catch up. Here's some more foxes because no one takes them. Except for you. You took a bunch of them. I mean, in theory, the bear's nice. He's just got nowhere to live. Flush him. There's nothing there for you, right? 2-point fox. Yeah, I think there's nothing there for you. Fortunately, there are 3 more foxes in the bag now. I guess that's maybe what you were thinking about before, what he was thinking about before flushing them out. That makes sense. Let's see if I can pull up the game and see if they did the scores there. Not sure what he's thinking about right now because I don't think there's anything that comes even remotely close. To bird, I think you just flush till bird. And I mean, maybe you waste a couple points doing that, but I don't think there's much else you have going on. Grabbing the scores while he's thinking. Let's just pause and skip forward. All right, I unpaused a little bit late, but what we're grabbing here is a fox and dropping a thing for 2 points and pressing the forest advantage there. I still think pushing for the hawk is the way to go, but hey, take it easy. See how it goes there. I did manage to get their final scores because we're not going to be able to see them. With all the exception of one. For some reason, I couldn't get Bryana's final score. But I think I know what it is. I think I heard maybe, so I'm going to speculate on that one, and then I'll tell you what the other ones are. Like, all right, so we get some flushing here. Now we're looking for birds, which is what we're supposed to be doing. Not yet, but there's a free fox flush. Flush from foxes. So those go in first. That's kind of the goofy thing about this game. I don't know how many birds have even been played. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So they're out there. There's one. And we'll grab it up. This in a habitat? Sure. That's connecting the marshland that's been waiting to be connected for almost all game. And then PJ here is looking to get a bear. That's what he wants. A lot of bears are out of the bag already. Everybody's got their family of bears in play, basically. 4, 8, 12, 16, 17, 18 is very, very few bears left. But he's pretty content with a fox. Fox is 3 points there. Four, 5, 6, 7. I think he's lost the forest officially. 3, 4, 5, 6. Maybe he can tie the marsh if I'm looking at it correctly. I think he's already got the water in hand. He might want to connect those mountains. That's not an option though. So that of the ones that are in play, the water marsh certainly looks most appealing. And the fox is 3 points. So for me, I think I would just grab that. I mean, a bear's 5, but why flush? Costs a point to flush, so you're gambling on getting 1 extra point. And I think he's already ahead. So you just grab that fox and be done with it. Since we're already kind of approaching on this like crazy amount of time, I'll go through the animal scores, which I did manage to get. So Bryana had 56, which makes sense. Her birds were just in kind of a rougher shape. She had sort of the, you see, she's got the deer, the reindeer, the elk. There we go. The bears and everything are all fine, but the foxes are only okay, and the birds are a bit of a miss. Aaron didn't finish his birds either. But those salmon are worth a ton of points, and he actually did a pretty nice job with many of his foxes. So he ends up with 65. It's 63 animal points for John, and then it's 73 animal points for PJ, again, just off of the wheel. When they go through and do the habitat scoring, it ends up being kind of similar-ish across, but I don't think it makes a big difference in the final scoring. Bryana does catch up a little bit, I think. I think her endgame score is 99, John at 101, Aaron at 102, and PJ winning at 110. So pretty huge scores across the board, which I think makes sense in a game with high-scoring animals. You're generally going to see those higher scores, but these players all took advantage of, double habitats, those kinds of things that just score extra points for you along the way. And congratulations to PJ for walking away the first ever wing ringer of Cascadia here. Hopefully that was helpful for you. It was fun for me to watch through this. A little bit of a long game, but so be it. And appreciate you for watching. Have a great time. Until next time. Bye, everyone.